Thank you. A friend of mine got shot and died a couple days ago. So it's been on my mind. What happens at the time of death? And where does the life force go? What is the transformation?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I haven't gone through physical death yet, as the Zen master who was asked about life after death said, "I don't know." And they said, "Why don't you know? You're the master." And he said, "Yeah, but I'm not a dead master." But I've gone very deeply to what one could call death to identification with form. So in a way I have gone into that realm from where I can say and know that ultimately what we see as death is the dissolution of form, that the eternal in us, which I know that firsthand, cannot be touched by that. So what exactly happens, I would say, depends on whatever state of consciousness you were in. That was your predominant state of consciousness in this lifetime. If in this lifetime you were continuously identified with form, your body, or the psychological form of me, that means consciousness, this expression of consciousness, was still in a somewhat dreamlike state, which is identification with form. And you can easily extrapolate from that if the tendency of consciousness to identify with form was still there, which in other ways the awakening had not happened. This tendency will continue. There will be further identification with form, and the process will continue as the consciousness that is not yet fully awake will continue to identify with form again, and then gradually come to a place where awakening happens. Or if there has already been a disidentification from form in this lifetime, then you can extrapolate from there that the compulsive urge to identify with form and to seek another form or another cycle of form identification, this compulsion to seek further experiences through identifying with form then would either be much weaker or be completely absent, in which case the consciousness that you are is no longer bound to this realm and will not seek to re-experience the realm of form. But in either case, you really, I can tell you that all is well. It does not really matter whether this person now needs further experiences of identification, in which case this will happen, or whether he's already free of this urge, in which case he will move on and live in a realm that we can't even conceive of from where we are here. I get a sense deep within in the forms of what that is, but we don't need to talk about it here. All we know is nothing. This is the beginning of A Course in Miracles, which is the entire Course in Miracles summarized in 2 lines. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. That which is real in him is beyond form. Anybody can know that when you see a dead body you realize that this is no longer whom you knew. This is not the being that you knew. This is only a shell. So nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal ultimately exists. This is why sages from all traditions speak of this realm of form as ultimately illusory. It depends what level you look at. The important thing is all is well. Beyond the appearance on the level of form, which is the only level where death exists, it is the transition from one form into another form, or from one form into formlessness. That is what death is, no more than that. Nothing real dies. Nothing real dies. Which is to say, ultimately, there is no such thing as death. There only seems to be. It's a transmutation of form. Either form dissolves or seeks some other form, some other identification with form. That, for you, of course, to go into stillness in the face of death, to go into stillness is important, to become still within yourself, especially when you are sitting with somebody who is going through the death process, or you are confronted with somebody who has just died next to you, whatever. To be with that, immediately close your eyes, go into the deep stillness where you realize who you are. And once you realize who you are, which is formless consciousness, then you realize also that nothing real died. Nothing real died, which is to say, ultimately there is no death. It does not mean that you can't feel sad. You can allow yourself to feel tears and to feel sad, and at the same time realize that nothing real died. That happened to me when my parents died 2 years ago within the space of 6 months, both of them. So to be confronted with the death of a loved one in a short period of time, yes, there were tears and there was sadness, and at the same time there was the realization that ultimately there is no death, and who they were in their essence has not been destroyed, just as I know that I in my essence cannot be destroyed. And so that comes from that. It comes from self-realization or self-knowledge, the realization that the other also is beyond death. That's so you can have the coexistence of, yes, on this level, there is a place for sadness and mourning and tears. If it happens, it comes in waves. You may have noticed, usually if somebody close to you dies, the sadness comes in waves at you, and then you cry, and then it leaves you, and then comes another wave. And even when the wave comes, there can be an undercurrent of peace. So you're not totally in that emotion, you're not totally consumed by it. It exists there in your own spaciousness. And the spaciousness underneath the emotion is the peace. And it's only from that inner peace that you can realize the truth behind death.